What's going on, guys? This is Martyrs Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls commentary. Alright, guys. Now, if you're familiar with the channel, then you would know that not too long ago I did a two-part video series featuring the Black Knight armor with the Black Knight Great Axe. A little while after I posted those two videos, I received a few personal messages with guys asking me to, kind of showcase some Silver Knight PvP. Alright, so this is what we're going to do this time around. We're going to do another two-part series, but this time around it will feature the Silver Knight with the Silver Knight Spear. Now, let's talk about spears for a little while. I actually do a lot of PvP. And I do it in various locations. I do it in the Berg. Every now and then you'll catch me in the kiln. I'm in the forest. I'm pretty much everywhere. I'm in the painted world. I'm kind of anywhere where people do a lot of PvP. Usually you can find me in one of those locations. Right? And in my personal experiences, 90% of the time, I don't want to keep using those high numbers. I'll just say the vast majority of the time, I am faced against katana users. And aside from katana users, probably I would say great sword users. You don't really see a lot of daggers. You don't see a lot of spears. You don't see a lot of halberds. Although some people use halberds, you don't really see a lot of those. So, it just kind of got me thinking. With the wide variety of weapons out there, why is it that people mostly only use great swords and katanas? Right? So, instead of trying to, psychoanalyze everybody and trying to figure it out, I just figured to myself that I would try to upload a few showcase videos using various weapons, right? Because, now, I'm not saying this is a credit to myself. I wouldn't say that at all, but one thing that I have noticed within the last few days of PvPing in the Berg is that I have seen a lot more Black Knight Great Axes lately, right? For whatever reason. Maybe it could be a coincidence, but, to the extent that a lot of those guys who have been using it were kind of, motivated by watching my video, I think that's a good thing. Because I really think we need a lot more variety as far as weapons are concerned and as far as builds are concerned. And this is why I started the Battle of the Build series. And actually this is a video series that is still open. So I'll even make this announcement again. For any of my subscribers out there, if you guys think you kind of have a groovy build. And actually, before I finish with that, that's a shout out. I'd like to give a shout out to good old Mr. Bushido Wright. And I was kind of talking at the time when we were fighting, but he has a Twitch.tv live stream in addition to a YouTube channel. And I've checked out his streams a couple times on the weekends, and it's a very good stream. So if you guys kind of want to watch some good old PvP action, perhaps participate in a fight club, go ahead, check out Mr. Bushido Wright. He also features a lot of good YouTube PvP videos, right? So he's another YouTuber out there, so just kind of check out his channel if you guys get some time. Alright, so back to what I was saying. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, okay. The lack of weapon variety. So, like I was saying before, I think that despite it being a wide variety of weapons and builds out there, a lot of times you just find yourself face against the same one. So this is why I came out with the Battle of the Build series. And actually, as I just said, the series is still open. Alright, so I'd like to make an announcement once again to everybody who are my subscribers, or just kind of checking out the vids. If any of you guys kind of have a groovy build, and I'm not talking about your little typical katana players. I'm not talking about just a straight great sword user. But if you have something that's somewhat unique, like let's just say you're kind of handy dandy on the bow action, right? Or if you're kind of like a status effects type of build, where you're kind of spewing out, toxic mist, in addition to some other high speed combinations, just go ahead and drop me a line. Because the intent of the Battle of the Build series is to showcase PvP with something other than those standard katanas and great swords, right? Because I really think we need a little more imagination with the builds. And in my personal opinion, what better way to spark that imagination than by showcasing it? Right? There's a particular YouTube guy out there, and I'm pretty sure some of you guys may have seen this video. But he started to showcase PvP builds, but I think he only did 2 videos on it. He kind of did a video saying, "Hey, dude, I'm going to start this series," but as far as what I can see, it was only 2 videos. But I think it was a good idea. The only thing that I would add to that is, in addition to showcasing builds, I think it's a good idea to, not only showcase what the build looked like and talk about the specs or whatnot, but to also showcase the build in action, right? So you can see the positives, the negatives, and, allow for the Dark Souls viewership to kind of, make decisions on their own. Like, wow, that's a cool build, maybe I'll try it. Especially for those guys who like to pick builds on that Dark Souls forums. I believe it's Wiki Spaces. They have a section that's dedicated to showcasing various builds. Alright, so like I said before, if any of you guys kind of have a high speed build out there, not the typical katana user or nothing like that, but if you kind of have something that's pretty tricky and you find that you have a lot of success with it, go ahead, drop me a line, and you can be featured in the Battle of the Build series, right? Because as I've stated before, the Battle of the Build series does not focus on who's winning or who's losing, although there will be PvP matches. The focus of the Battle of the Build series is to showcase different builds to kind of spark people's originality and creativity, because I'm telling you, in most cases you see katanas or great swords. Not too often do you see spears. I mean, I can probably count on one hand and still have fingers left how many times I've seen a Silver Knight spear. Right, and that's why I thought it was a good idea to feature the Silver Knight spear after, guys kind of enjoyed the video that I did on the Black Knight Great Axe using the Black Knight armor. Alright, so enough about that. Now, I have 2 different variations to this build. The first variation is the one that you see now. Right, and is basically just a straight up dexterity variation. It has enough endurance to carry both the Silver Knight spear and the Silver Knight sword, although the vast majority of the time I use the Silver Knight spear. Right, now the second variation is the Silver Knight cleric, you might say, and that's only because it is basically a faith build. And with that Silver Knight, it is a member of the Dark Moon Covenant, right? And it has a few attunement slots for miracles, and that's one of the builds that I have that focuses on using the high speed buff with the Silver Knight sword, and a few other support miracles, like the Great Magic Barrier, the Vow of Silence, Tranquil Walk, and a few others. Right? But you won't be seeing the second variation in this particular video. Now, maybe in a future Battle of the Build series, I'll feature the Silver Knight with the second variation. But for this two-part series, you guys are just going to see the first, and that's strictly using the Silver Knight Spear. Now, one thing to pay attention to, we all hate backstab fishers, right? Some of us hate backstabbing, period, whether you're fishing or not. And one thing about the spear is that because a lot of people do not like it, mainly because it's good at keeping you at a distance, depending upon the skill of that particular player. Because it has the potential to keep you at a distance, in addition to having a pretty quick attack speed, a lot of people just do not like it, right? And some of the cases to where, you're faced against a spear and you're like, man, I just cannot close a distance with this guy. And a lot of the times it motivates a player to fish for backstabs, right? And, granted, though it's not a justification, I can understand, because if somebody's just picking you left and right with that spear and you can't get in, it kind of, as they say, desperate time calls for desperate measures. As you can see right now. But see, just as you just saw, that's a viable defense, right? Using your boots. Kick. Right? Now, with the kicks, you could do one of two things. Either it would be a successful kick and you can counterattack, or it will not be a successful kick and you have the potential of negating the damage from the backstab, as you just saw in the previous fight. This is especially useful for this particular build, and this is why I say that. The vast majority of the time when you see me with this build, I will not be using the shield, right? In most cases I'll have the shield on my back, so it won't be one of those cases where you're faced against the spear and I'm turtling, because not only is it boring, but that doesn't really, you guys notice that kick? Right, so the combination of keeping them at a distance with the spear and kicking proves to be pretty successful. And actually, some of these guys are going to continue to do it, and I'm going to try to point it out as often as I can. But as I was saying, there's going to be no turtling, because a lot of people tend to do that when they have either rapiers or spears, especially when the vitality is getting kind of low. It's kind of like, okay, let me kind of just turtle behind the spear. But, I don't think anyone likes turtles. A lot of people don't respect turtles because anyone can kind of hide behind a shield and just poke, but that's nothing. So basically, my only strategy with the Silver Knight Spear is going to be an attempt to keep my opponents at a distance by the poking and with the kicks, because I know these guys are going to attempt to BS me. I already know it, right? And to the extent that I'm able to spot a good attempt, that's when I should throw a good kick attempt out. And actually, you guys will notice it. Okay, unfortunately, he was able to get in with that high-speed backstab. But, well, I don't need to say anything about that. You guys see the result. Alright. Now, this is going to be a two-part series that's going to be, I don't know, probably about 50 minutes in length total between the two parts. So you guys are going to be able to watch me in a myriad of situations. And if you guys notice, I try to kick them in because I see them circling. But fortunately, the speed of the spear came in handy. Right? And that's one good thing that I like about the spear, you know. Not only does it have the potential to keep you at a distance, but it's rather quick. Right? And granted, I mean, it really doesn't output a lot of damage. But, I mean, it's good enough. Especially when you take into consideration the speed at which you're able to inflict the damage. You know, so in other words, whereas you may have a claymore that can inflict about 400. You guys notice that kick? He was trying to go for that BS. But the kicks come in rather handy. Okay. That kind of hurt. And actually, since he kind of hit me with that spamming the R1 somewhat, that's, you guys notice I just took my shield down. But actually, before he had a second opportunity to spam the R1, he lost. Right? So in most cases, the only time you're going to see me using my shield is when I notice someone spamming R1 attacks, or if I see them doing a lot of that, you know, that typical roll attack, you know, where they just kind of use a great sword or something like that, and then they roll, and once the roll is complete, they hit the R1. You know, those, I mean, that move right there is pretty much just asking for a parry. You know, but other than that, I'll just go ahead and two-hand the spear best as I can. And actually, I got a lot of good matches. I mean, if you guys are paying attention to my humanity meter, it's pretty much going in order. And I think by the time the two-part series is over, I think, and actually I went all the way up to 99. Now, though I didn't record up to 99, I think the two-part series ends at about, I don't know, 75 humanity or something like that. Now, although my intentions was to go all the way to 99, I didn't want to bore you guys with a three-part series, right, of just doing the spear action. I don't know. So I might either delete that material or just keep it on reserve. Alright. Alright, so that person just hit me with another backstab. But, I mean, we see how that ended. Alright, the guy. Alright, so to a lot of you guys, I'd like to give a shout out and you know, another recommendation for the Twitch viewers. You know, there's a lot of fight clubs on the weekends. Right? So I know some of you guys are kind of into the forums or whatnot, but if you guys want to, you know, just kind of test your skill, and not only test your skill, but, you know, if you kind of want to be in one of those situations where, you know, you can meet up with some cool guys and, you know, kind of do something on a regular, I would go ahead and draw your attention to the Twitch TV streams. Right? Because there's a lot of cool guys on there that I've met, you know, and we kind of have our own little circle of, you know, what you might call Dark Souls PvP cohesion. Right? Now, granted, I'm not really playing in the fight clubs on the weekends, but, I mean, for the guys who are on there, you know, it is a good group. I mean, you got Short Dude, I don't know, Black Mercenaries on there a lot. Kind of have D Invader. You have a whole bunch of guys, and they will definitely test your skill, right? And, you know, it's not really all that competitive, but, you know, if you guys kind of want to get into some good fight clubs, as I've said in the past, I like to go ahead and draw your attention to Twitch TV, and that would be twitch.tv. There's a lot of good streamers out there. You know, you got Mr. Bushido, right, and and a few others. Expanding the community. Alright. That guy looks hardcore, doesn't he? Okay, so what do we have here? We have a dagger user. Okay, with a parrying shield. So that's either a buckler or a target shield. Okay, so I have reason to believe that this guy is using, okay, just what I thought, a hornet ring. Which is cool, right? Because he's using a dagger. You know, I have more, now I don't have respect for that kind of attempt he made right there. Actually, I don't care about that. It is what it is. It comes with the territory. But, you know, I have more respect for a hornet ring user of a dagger or rapier than what I would have of a ridiculous, well, you guys know what that ultra great sword that starts with a Z. I don't even want to mess the name up. Or with a Black Knight Great Axe. I absolutely hate those guys, right? Because I really do not think that it is necessary for a Black Knight Great Axe user, you know, or a Ultra Great Sword user to be using the Hornet Ring, right? Even when you guys are kind of ganking and camping, you know, is it really necessary? No. I mean, anyone can kind of, you know, swipe, I don't know, $1,600 damage with a Hornet Ring and a Black Knight Great Axe. I mean, that's nothing, right? But do I think it's legitimate with a dagger or a rapier? I mean, it is what it is, but definitely not with one of those, you know, great axes, ultra great swords or something like that. That's simply ridiculous. So shout out to the high-speed dagger user, because that's another weapon that you rarely see used out there. And, you know, actually, I've seen a few effective ones. I think on a previous vid that I have, there's a guy who tightened me up with daggers. Right, and he did a pretty good job of it. I can't think of his name, but I know it's on one of the more recent videos that I uploaded. Alright, so we have a high-speed bow wielder. Looks like he's using the Dragon Slayer bow and maybe, I don't know. Okay. Now, seeing that this person is using a bow, my tactic will be to keep the distance close. Right? Because if I allow him to back off and stay at a distance, he will have time to not only try to pick me off with perhaps poison arrows, but kind of use this tactic that they use where, you know, they kind of stay off in a distance, you know, kind of tighten you. You guys notice that kick? Okay. But, you know, they kind of stay off in a distance, try to tighten you up with bows, and then out of desperation, you know, as you're kind of running into them for the attack, they hurry up and switch from the bow to the shield and parry you. Now, there's a lot of guys who's pretty good at that tactic. You know, I would like to call it the bait and switch. Right? And for guys like that who use the bait and switch, your best tactic, in my opinion, is probably to keep the distance close. Right? Because as long as you're keeping the distance close, they probably don't have time to kind of pull out the bow and kind of use it on you. Another tactic would be, once you do get close up on them, is probably to kick rather than attack. Right? Because most of them who's using that bait and switch technique, they're waiting for you to attack. And since they're waiting for you, usually what their strategy is to switch from the button. Now you see this? This is the kind of nonsense I cannot stand. Why is this guy really using a Hornet Ring with that weapon? And then on top of that, he's going to kind of point at the ground like he's teaching me a lesson. Get off it, dude. Like, are you serious? You know, in other words, who can't backstab fish and hit you with a Hornet Ring? I can do that all day long. Alright, so your little, you know, pointing at the ground doesn't mean anything, dude. You're a joke. I hate guys like that. Well, actually, I hate player strategies like that. Alright. Okay, back to business. So we're dealing with a buff user. And actually, I think I fought this guy a couple times before. And he's doing a lot of flipping around. One thing to keep in mind for these guys that like to do a whole bunch of flips. One thing that I have noticed in the Berg is that you have a few players, and it's this technique that I need to learn how to do. And I'm not saying I need to learn how to do it, because I just kind of want to get jazzy with it. But it seems to be an effective strategy, although it is annoying. Now, the strategy that I have seen is kind of like the person they just do this repeated flip, like 4 or 5 flips in a row, just to kind of, get you circling, and then they keep backstabbing you. It's kind of like a unconventional form of backstab fishing. And the reason why I say it's unconventional is because most people, at least in my personal experience, when they backstab fish, they just kind of maybe run into you, or they'll just kind of circle you either in a clockwise or counterclockwise direction. Well, these guys aren't doing that. It's kind of like a roll BS fish kind of technique, right? And actually, I think I run into a few guys who do that technique. But see, the thing is, I have this run right here, which is a straight humanity run. I think it starts at about 20 or 30 and it goes up to 75. But there's a second time that I created this build. And actually, the second time that I created the build, I think the humanity start counts at 20 and I go up. But I run into a few guys who do that. Right? So I don't know. Depending upon, how part 2 is going, I might upload that part 3 featuring my second humanity run. And I think it's only about, 20 matches or so. But we'll see. I don't want you guys to kind of get bored with the Silver Knight Spear. Right. Alright, so we got an onion head. Let's see what onion head's going to bring to the table. And speaking of onion head, that Katarina armor set is rather ugly. Okay, what kind of weapon is that? Is that just a regular claymore? Now, the next weapon that I am thinking about showcasing, well, actually, before I get into a long rant, maybe I should just kind of end this one here, because this is actually the last match of this particular video, so maybe I'll just kind of pick up that conversation on the next time around. Alright guys, well, this is the last match of this particular vid. Stand by for part 2. Martyrs Brigade is out.